Hello, everyone. My name is Esther, and this is Orlando here. We are here representing the Richland Anthropology Club. So just keep in mind that, whatever we say here is not the opinion of the college or anyone else except for us two. So please don't sue us for our bad opinions or good opinions, either or. That's all.
You can just sue Esther and it'll be okay. It'll be just fine.
Actually, I take that back. All of the opinions are Orlando's. Thank you. Today, our topic is Brazil. We've been on a sort of like a series talking about different countries, just our thoughts about them, how we can view them through an anthropological sense, since this is the Anthropology Club, and Brazil. Yay! Okay. So just a brief history about the political background. It was under Portugal's rule until 1889, when, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Is that right? Is that right? Am I reading my notes right?
It was in the 1500s when they first. Okay, you got it? Or
No, I'm saying when when independent. It was
oh, okay.
1888, and they had a. Can we restart?
This goes in the general meeting, so it's okay. I'll just cut it out. I'll just be like, boop, boop.
Oh, will you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, since you're cutting out this part, also, when are you going to upload the other ones?
I'll do it today.
Oh, will you?
Yeah, no, I swear I will. We can bet on this, so we'll place a bet. How about that? Yeah,
Okay,
you want to?
place a bet. Let's go. How much?
$10.
Too much. I'm poor.
That's too much.
How about $2 in pennies?
All right. I'm gonna have to go to the store to get some pennies, but all right.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So
Okay.
starting over.
Hang on. Let me just go over my notes one more time. Oh no, it was 1822 that the Portugal. Okay.
Independence.
Yes. Restart.
Okay.
Okay. It was in 1822 that the Portuguese left Brazil, or not quite left Brazil, but Brazil gained its independence then. And then in 1888, the Brazilian people removed the monarchy from the country. And after that, it was military rule until a populist leader, Getulio Vargas, in 1930, he came over and basically took over the political side of Brazil. And then, the populist and military rule kind of coincided until 1985, when it was turned over to civilian rule. So some interesting fact about after the monarchy was destroyed and before the populist party kind of came in, the Brazilian coffee exporters were very politically powerful. So if you were in coffee distribution, then, had some power there.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
wonder if that's changed at all.
honestly, I should have looked that up before this.
I don't honestly. I think we can make a safe assumption to say like there's still probably a lot of influence in terms of the industry because that's one of their biggest distributions. But carry on.
Yeah. So that's kind of an overview of the political side of Brazil, just a brief history. Um, but
Cool. Yeah.
yeah, actually, something interesting, kind of a little bit of drama that happened most recently was in 2016, President Dilma Rousseff, she was impeached for violating the budgetary laws. Now, you
Mm.
would think, okay, So she's kicked out of office, and her vice president comes in and serves the rest of her term. But some more drama that's kind of in that area. The Brazil actually suffered an economic downturn, and they were in sort of a recession from 2015 to 2016, right around the time that President Dilma would have, or I'm sorry, President Rousseff, her last name, would have been, majorly impacting the budgetary laws. So, a little bit of spice it up.
A little
Any thoughts
controversy
on
there.
that?
A little. Hmm.
Mm.
That's quite. That's quite. What was I gonna say? The coincidence. I forgot the word. That's sad. No, but dang, that's a lot of political intel. So thanks for that. There's someone else in the room, I'm assuming.
Was just briefly.
Awesome. Well, kind of taking it back to. Oh, are you still? Are you still?
Oh, I was just going to put a disclaimer there. We're not really implying that, the two were cause and effect. It was just interesting that they were around the same time. So keep that in mind.
Whatever opinion you would like to, that's your own.
Exactly.
Okay. Taking it back to kind of like the historical side, something I kind of found was interesting was Amerigo Vespucci was one of the first to voyage to Brazil, and when they were discovering it, he was actually on his way to find a kind of wood from India that was called pau Brazil. So that's actually where Brazil got the name. And the interesting thing about that is that Amerigo Vespucci, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he's actually the person that America was named after. So actually, I thought that was pretty cool. Like the person that was named after, America, is actually the person who kind of was involved with Brazil getting its name as well, which I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Um, but
quite
yeah, you brought up a
the,
lot of historical information. I mean, in terms of like their culture and just their population, it's very interesting to see how ethnically, is that right?
Mhm.
Diverse they are because of their history. They've had slavery. They had, at one point, they basically had a lot of settlement from Germans, from Japanese, from a lot of Northern Europeans as well, and even, the African influence because of slavery. It's interesting to see how they have a very similar dynamic to the US, but their culture is also very different, though, because in the US there's a lot of racial turmoil and there's a lot of things problems in terms of like division and how people perceive each other and racism and things like that. But in Brazil it's almost non-existent. They're very mixed. If you look at their skin tone, a lot of the general population, you'd see that like their skin is very fair and it's in like a sort of light color. I can't really explain it, but that's because for them they don't really race isn't really too much of a thing. You know, it's more of just sort of a description. If you call someone like, oh, like redneck or black or something, they're not being racial, they're being just descriptive. And so it's interesting to see how it's very similar. They're very similar to us in terms of their population, but yet racism isn't a problem there. And what that could be the case too, what can be that why that's the case, we don't really know. But the literacy that rate there is actually 91%. So that's kind of crazy. That maybe might be the case. You never know. They're just smarter than us. Who knows? I don't know. But because of that, you've seen a lot of political success there. They've had, for the most part, a lot less turmoil than we have. So, which is interesting that you brought that up in terms of the controversy that you just mentioned there. But no, I thought that was interesting too because their major religion is actually Roman Catholicism, but yet they're very religiously tolerant. That's it's interesting too because they have actually a large population of LGBTQ communities, and they're actually very tolerant of it. You don't really see that much of a problem there as well. So that's another interesting thing again, where you have like a mixture of two different schools of thoughts or two different kinds of livings, and yet there's no turmoil. And so that's one thing I really found interesting about Brazil is just their unity, it's just their ability to kind of be these different races and still mix and still be just present. And that's something that kind of through all of my research has kind of just defined them. And that's, to me, that's honestly like the most profound thing. But a lot of the ethnicities there are German, Italian, Lebanese, African, and Japanese. Those are some of the major ones. And Brazil as a whole is just split into, I believe, 6 different sections, if I'm not mistaken. It's the it's just going to be like basically encompasses like north, northeast, central, west, southeast, and south. And basically, a lot of their geography kind of affects the culture. So in the northern side of Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually a lot of Africans are based in that area. So you see things like the music called samba, which is very popular there. It's popularized by them. They hold festivals and often will play that music on the streets. And actually, one of my favorite artists is actually based in samba. I forgot his name. Let me see. It's right here. Do 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 boop boop. Where is it at? I don't know. Sorry about that. Where's his name? Oh, I'm gonna mess this up, but Jao Gilberto. Um, yeah, he made a song called "Girl from Ipanema," and it's one of my favorite songs actually. So it was cool to find. I didn't even know he was Brazilian, but yeah, and that's where that came up from. But I feel like I've gone on forever. So do you have any input so far?
Uh, on that stuff, not not really anything that I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of went on a rant there, but let's bring it back here. Also, I mean, I think what was interesting too, is Rio de Janeiro was actually the capital of Portugal for a moment. So it was the first and only city to be the capital of a country outside of the country. And that was during the time of John VI, where basically he was afraid of Napoleon taking over. And so he basically fled to Portugal, was like, I mean, Portugal to Rio de Janeiro, and basically made it the capital, which I thought was interesting as well. Another interesting thing about a city is Sao Paulo. They actually have banned ads on the streets. So if you go to this, so if you compare like, US, you go outside, you see a bunch of billboards, a bunch of like advertisements all over the place. It's literally the makeup of our cities. You go to Sao Paulo, you're not going to see any of that. And I thought that was amazing. I was like, whoa, I'd love to see that. That's so incredible. And basically, they took a survey. Well, a lot of people at first were scared because they were like, oh, it's going to hurt the economy. People are going to lose their jobs, da da da. But then actually, they found that about 70% of the population agreed that it actually boosted their productivity and, aesthetically pleasing as well. So I thought that was awesome. I was like, man, that's pretty great.
Then what kind of ads were banned?
So basically, just all bands in general. I mean, all ads in general, like
Oh,
literally all billboards, all everything. No ads, period.
what?
Yeah, so the only thing I guess you could kind of call an ad is like, so like the McDonald's like anything that's related to the actual business itself stays there. But you can't go outside and see a billboard of like some restaurant that's like half away across the city. So yeah, that's insane. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Another interesting little, sorry if I'm hogging the mic, by the way. Another interesting fact is that in southern Brazil, in Catarina Beach, the dolphins actually helped the fishermen. And they were not pre-trained or anything. It wasn't something that was done. They just help. Oh,
Like grabbing the fish and throwing them overboard.
no, 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 no. No, so what they do is they signal the fishermen using like their blowholes and their fins, basically showing them where all the sweet spots are for the fish. Yeah, and they don't know why that's the case. They say because maybe it's because the fishermen have taken that region for a long time alongside the dolphins. But it's just like some phenomenon. It's crazy.
I don't
Yeah.
know that. You sure?
Well, then I don't know what's like. How do you explain it? I don't know. There's no explanation.
Hmm. So then, so then, I don't know. That's weird.
Okay. Okay.
They are
I got
dolphins.
one more for you. One more for you. One
Oh,
more. I'll stop there. I'll let you get your time in because you're like, this guy's talking too much. Um, one thing that I kind of like, because we're doing a lot of comparisons between America and Brazil. Another interesting thing is their prison systems. They're more focused on rehabilitation rather than, actually keeping the prisoners in the prison. So one of the programs that they offer is that prisoners can read books and actually write critical essays, and they can shorten their sentence and actually, come out sooner out of prison for doing that. And I thought that was actually like that. That's amazing. Like they're really focused on actually rehabilitating and like informing their population. That can even maybe be due to like the 91% literacy rate we were talking about earlier. Um, Another thing that I thought was interesting is that they called it like they can cycle out of prison as well, like on electric bicycles. Basically, they'll pedal them, and they actually light public street lamps. So that's also a thing. Yeah.
Prison labor.
Maybe.
I don't know. If it's not forced, then I guess it's
But
not.
but if it's helping them get out earlier,
If it's voluntary, then
yeah.
that's fine. But who said it's voluntary?
Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop.
No, I had something to say about the Dolphins. If I were the Dolphins, I would hog the sweet spot for myself.
You'd
I would
hog fish.
share with the
You're
fishermen.
not. You would be a nice dolphin. That's messed up.
Well, I mean, if the fishermen were nice, then maybe. But I don't know.
That's maybe they are nice. Maybe they're like friends with dolphins. Maybe they have friend friend dolphins.
Swim with the Dolphins.
That'd be awesome, actually. I kind of want to go now. Like honestly, just researching Brazil has made me so interested in it. I'm like, wow, this place sounds awesome. But yeah.
All right, yeah. Well, goodbye, Orlando. Have fun on your trip. Uh,
Okay. Bye bye. See ya. This will be my last episode.
right. Yeah, well, just kind of bringing it back to uh, some more facts about Portugal. It actually has the eighth largest economy in the world,
Mm,
and it is growing, even though they had that recession back in 2015 and 16, which was actually the worst recession in Brazil's history.
dang.
Yes, but they are still the eighth in the world, so they are on the rise. Go Brazil! And then, as if you're from America and you like soccer, then you probably know that they won the 2014 FIFA World Cup. So that was another fun fact about Brazil. Um, and actually, so 61.9% of the country is forest. And, you can guess why, but their biggest problem in terms of uh, the culture, I'm sorry, not the culture, but the environment is deforestation. So even though 60% is forest, they've got a big problem with all those trees being cut down.
That's
Um,
crazy. What is it
and
like? 1/3. They have like 1/3 of the world's trees. I think maybe that's an overestimation. Something like that. It's like some kind of fraction. Like 1/4, 1/3 of the world's entire population of trees is in the Amazon rainforest. I want to say. Don't listen to us, guys. Just Google it. Something like that.
yes, Google exactly.
Mhm.
Yes. But another thing is that Brazil shares its border with every South American country except for two, and those are Chile and Ecuador.
Mm,
Not sure if I said
that's
those right,
that's a
but
big country.
yes. So, if you're just looking at South America, I don't know how to draw it. Um, it's most of South America. And honestly, it's amazing that they have such a big growing economy and, that they're still together after all this time.
Mm,
because usually whenever you have a big country, it's really hard to manage. Um, so honestly, props to them.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Um, yeah, and then kind of back to what you said earlier that about 60%, something like that, was Catholic, Roman Catholic. You said.
That's correct.
Yes, and then actually another 22% is Protestant. So most of it is very Christian. And I would guess, I don't know this for sure, and don't quote me on this, but I would guess it's from, the Portugal having such a big influence for so many years of the region. A lot of the culture in Brazil and a lot of just everything that flows from that, the religion and everything like that, it comes from Portugal, really. And of course, Brazil has, changed it a bit and made it its own. But then, yeah, so that was interesting. Oh, this is a really fun one.
All right.
Brazil is the second largest consumer of cocaine worldwide.
Whoa.
So, you know,
That's a fun one. All right.
uh,
Hmm.
so that's a fun fact. If you're into that,
Let's
you know,
remember, this is all Esther's opinion. This is all.
it's like an opinion.
Uh-huh. You said it was fun. You said, this is the fun.
This is a fun fact. You know, fun is interesting.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
yes, but actually, they've had a lot of problems with kind of illegal drugs and illegal weapons and crossing borders with that. So that's one of the major problems right now, along with deforestation. Um, but yeah, so that's fun. Any thoughts?
That was fun for sure. Uh, so I'm gonna kind of go back to something you said, and then kind of diverge from that. So, talking about sports, you're saying that they won the 2014 World Cup, and so an interesting thing I found is that their football team, soccer team, has actually qualified for every single World Cup. So that's crazy. Yeah, so soccer for them like it's really really important. You can literally go to any streets, whether it's the wealthy, whether it's like the poorer side, and everybody's playing soccer. And I just thought like their sports scene is very interesting in terms of their athletics because they very hold it close to their identity. Another interesting
Linda,
thing is their in
Linda,
terms. Huh,
would you say that Brazilian soccer is bigger than American football?
what? I feel
Yeah.
like there's a joke I'm missing here. I
No,
get.
no, 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 no.
I was just asking a question.
I'm just asking. Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were gonna hit me with the punchline. Oh,
No, no. Sorry, I'm not that
I
good.
was I was waiting. I was like, yeah. All right. Would I say that?
I mean, it could be a pun, but we won't do that.
I'm
Is
missing something.
Brazilian football
There's,
bigger than American football?
oh no.
I bet it would be. I bet it is.
Okay, wait. I thought you did mean something, and now I don't. Okay, I'll stop there. I'll stop. Well, just that was a mess. I'll cut this part out right here.
No, no, that was good. Okay, continue.
Okay. Another interesting thing is they're actually famous for their martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Um, they actually invented it. It comes from. Alright. It comes from. It comes from Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. So basically, this is not even in my notes. I kind of just know this off top. Um, Hoyler Gracie, if I'm not mistaken. The Gracie family was basically a very famous family in Brazil. Um, and I think it was Hoyler Gracie and one of his brothers. They actually went to Japan and learned Japanese jiu-jitsu But they found a problem with it. They found that it wasn't actually really suited for combat. And so for them, and it wasn't really suited for what they call the ground attacks. And so when they first were inventing it, essentially, they spent hours on hours just kind of mastering movement and understanding what it is that actually works and what it is that you can actually like best your opponent. And they would actually invite people from all different kinds of martial arts to their dojo, and they would challenge them to a fight. So literally anybody, it was an open invitation. Literally anybody could come. We go to the back, we're about to fight. Like it was literally that. And they would do that because for them, they just wanted to prove that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is like the best thing, just period. And for anyone that would question it, I'm not sure. Huh?
Fight Club.
For anyone that would question it, basically, I don't know if you're familiar with UFC at all, but UFC is basically a martial arts organization. And their very first event, they invited literally every single martial artist, all over the world, and they were all competing against each other. And the Gracies sent Hoist Gracie to represent Gracie Jiu Jitsu, and he actually ended up winning. And so he was actually not even that big of a guy. He wasn't like the strongest, and he went up like against some bigger guys, some stronger guys, people like in boxing, people in karate, and he beat them. So literally, he kind of proved that jiu-jitsu is kind of one is I don't know if it is the best, but one of the best martial arts in the world. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Is that the martial arts that's like one of the only ones that a smaller person can beat a bigger person?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
So because like it's not based around sort of strength, it's more based around technique and how you can kind of get the other person's weight against them actually. So yeah. And I thought that was really interesting too. But going back now to kind of a darker side, I guess. Going back to the World Cup. Remember, I don't know if you remember like the scandals that were going on in the Brazilian World Cup and when they hosted it, where basically there's so the slums in Brazil, they have a specific name. I don't remember off the top. Let me see if I can't find it. Because they do have a very specific name. I don't know the name. Dang it. I want to say. Okay, let me not waste our time. But basically, it's kind of little focused areas of buildings. Basically, lower income families live there. A lot of families often share it with the extended family or close families, and they'll live in one area and they'll live together very closely. So during the World Cup and when Brazil was hosting it, they were essentially just building walls to kind of block the view of these cities, and basically so that the tourists, when they were coming for the World Cup, they essentially would not even know of these places that exist. So basically it would kind of boost the city, but at the same time it would kind of show just this injustice that basically there's this receding idea of higher income people and lower income people, and you know what, you don't exist. That's pretty sad. And in terms of my research and like findings, I found that that's probably their biggest problem is that there's this gap that's starting to come. People are saying it's due to the fact of this kind of Northern American European culture where basically we're kind of, consumerism and materialism is kind of coming to fruition, and the higher society is kind of seeing themselves as better as the lower society, and essentially, for the most part, they are essentially trying to hide lower income people and these lower income neighborhoods and making them look as if like they're not even almost non-human is what one of the reporters actually suggested, which was pretty, I don't know, that was pretty drastic. Um, but for the most part, where you see here, you see racial turmoil. Over there, you see kind of wealth turmoil, where basically it's instead of being race and race, it's more of the wealthy versus the non-wealthy, and that seems to be kind of like their biggest problem to date, from what I've seen in my research in terms of that. But yeah.
So then, uh, if we look at this from a philosophical point of view, you're in the philosophy club, so you should be good at this.
Right.
Stakes are higher for you.
Oh no.
But then, so let's look at this philosophically, ethically. and then let's look at it objectively from an economic standpoint.
Mhm.
So, ethically, you know, you're hiding the people, and I think you've kind of made it clear that you think of that as more like a wrong thing to do, and that's like a bad thing to do, right? Would you say that, or just give me your?
So I don't think the act of it itself is necessarily unethical. I think it's a reflection of the attitude that has surrounded the society. Essentially, that there's this growing idea that we don't need to care for our less privileged, or rather that they're less than us. I don't think it's the act itself. I think it's more of the attitude that can be dangerous.
Okay, okay, I see. And then switching over to the objective side, kind of more of an economic standpoint.
Mhm.
You've got the World Cup, and you've got tourists who are coming who are not going to be happy if they see a bunch of slums, right? You could, if you were the government, then you could say, oh man, I should have worked on this earlier. I should have fixed the slums earlier, but last minute things, you can't just move everybody up in a social standing class.
Well, okay, I'll let you finish. I think you guys, yeah.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, economically, it would be best to hide these people, right?
So that's a very loaded question because when it
No, no,
comes to, okay,
economically,
no,
not ethically.
no, I mean economically
Yeah.
because economically speaking, there's so many factors that go into things like this because the World Cup actually bankrupted Brazil. So in turn, you could have asked, well, should they have even hosted it? Because that in and of itself kind of shows that it wasn't very well thought out. It wasn't very well planned. It was more of, oh, we need this to boost our tourism or to boost our kind of our heightened sense. And
Political
so
standing.
in terms of an economic stance of whether or not it's easier to just kind of boost tourism while at the same time getting rid of poverty in a sense, I guess I can see what you mean. Like in terms of that, it's kind of a quick solution, but in the long term, I don't think they were economically looking at it from that standpoint. I think it was moreover, it's we just don't want them to see this.
Yeah. That's interesting. If you look at it, well, okay, now I'm changing over to a psychological point of view.
Okay, I like it.
And, these people, it seems like Brazil is more ashamed of the slums. That's what it looks like, especially if looking at this from an economic point of view, because then, what else would they be looking at it through?
Mm.
Um, I would guess that it's, they're ashamed of the people. And so kind of Brazil being ashamed of its people, what would you think, what kind of impact would that have on its citizens? Because, if you're a citizen and you think, that's really uh, hard for people to understand and to accept, and then to just keep going about their life as best they can, even if they are doing the best they can, and then they think my country is still ashamed of me because I was born into this social class.
So, okay. Yeah, once again, these are like very loaded questions because there's so many ways to think about it. But yeah, that's a very good question too. In
There
terms
are
of that, in terms of that, I feel like we don't even have to look far to understand it, somewhat understand it, because if you look at the US, it's kind of similar in that sense. If not, we're kind of further down that line than they are. Is that, we do have also, a wealth inequality here in the US. And if I think for people that are, in those situations, I think it creates this me against all mentality, where basically it's like I have to do what I have to do to get to the top and to make sure that my family is fed. I think in the US, due to capitalism, obviously not necessarily capitalism is its fault or anything like that, but because of the nature of it, it creates this competition, this idea of me versus everyone, me above everyone. And I think that's what Brazil inevitably, sadly, unfortunately, is kind of leading towards. Essentially, that they are going to, if it keeps down that route, essentially you're going to have that division where basically people aren't going to be looking to their neighbors, maybe not as unified as they once were, because they're going to be looking to see, okay, how can I get the leg up on this person? How can I get the, something, not necessarily that it's going to lead down that route, but I can imagine it from that perspective. But also, just kind of to add on what you were saying, just thinking about like the attitude that people might have about, let's think about it from like the wealthier person's perspective. I'm sure for them it's like it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, where basically they're living in their own world and then they're looking at these other people who are completely kind of different than them because of their wealth, and then they're thinking, well, I was born here, I did it, I have my own thing. Why should I care about them?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you kind of get towards that dangerous side of wealth inequality. But I think they'd probably deal with it better than we do. Because once again, going back to the literacy rate being 91%, going back to all of those things, you can avoid things like racism. You can avoid things like turmoil that essentially kind of divides people based off ignorance. They can avoid that and possibly find a better solution to it.
Interesting.
Possibly. I don't know. I'm not a political scientist. I'm just.
Yes, we are just students as of now. Um, so yes, we're not
Yeah.
experts. Yeah. So do you know the time?
Yeah, I think we actually went 30 minutes or 30 minutes. Yeah, I think we've gone 30 minutes or so. So yeah.
Should we wrap this up then?
Yeah, we can wrap it up. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you have tuned in, it's been me, Orlando, Vice President of Anthropology Club, and obviously our lovely President, Esther Land. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and have a
And
great
comment. If you have any thoughts on this, please leave your comments. We would love to see them.
day. All right. Thank you,
Very
guys.
well.
Goodbye. Okay, cool. Dude, I
Okay.
think that was like our best episode. We like actually had things to talk about the whole time.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that's funny too, because like I felt like I didn't know as much about this one, but
Oh, totally. Yeah,
what's the next topic or next one?
I don't know.
Okay. How about France?
Hang on.
What? Why are you laughing?
Who said I'm laughing? Hang on. Mm. I thought there were notes about like.
Sorry, texting these people real. Okay, did you find it?
It says that it's still recording.
No. Oh. Oh, wait. No, it is still recording. Okay.